If you've been up late at night researching, am I burnt out? Should I move abroad? Should I move to France? Am I depressed? This video is for you. You can't fully explain why, and you might not be running away from your life, right? You might not even be burnt out. You might be having these kind of thoughts because you've outgrown your life. And I'm going to show you signs you can use to check if that's what's happening to you and why you shouldn't ignore these signs. So let me give you the language. Outgrowing your life isn't a feeling, it's like a fit problem. So your life was built around like a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. The one that you exist now, it's like you wearing clothes that fit, but they're too tight in certain places. And when something doesn't fit, you don't always know what doesn't fit. You just kind of like feel uncomfortable. And so you cycle through explanations. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm being ungrateful for the life that I have. Maybe I need a vacation. And like you cycle through these explanations before you let yourself name what's really happening. And what's really happening is maybe this isn't for me anymore. If you can relate to that question, then it's worth sitting with it some more because if this life isn't yours anymore, then what is? Quick intro, I'm Diedre. I've lived 9+ years in France as a foreigner. I currently work in HR, which means I give visa and mobility support for our foreign employees, the ones that we hire, and helping them renew their paperwork as well. Outside of work, I coach women through their move to France. And this last part is why I am here talking with you. Because almost every woman I work with starts in the same place. They've outgrown something in their life. They just don't have the language for it yet. If you're sitting with that question and you don't know what to do with it, I built something specifically for this moment. It's a live workshop called Move to France, The Essentials. It's on May 30th, 30. I'll come back to it, but for now, let's look at the signs that you've outgrown your life. So there are 4 signs, right, that you can use to check if you've outgrown your life. First, before we even get into it, I want to highlight that the signs aren't crisis signs. So if your life was on fire, you wouldn't really need me to tell you about it. The signs of outgrowing, they're insidious. It's like subtle, easy to ignore. And as I go through each of the signs, check them against your own life. Be honest and see how many of them you tick off as in, yeah, check. Oh, this is me. Oh, this is me. All right, so let's get to the sign. Sign 1, you can predict your week before it starts. Not in a, I have a meeting on Tuesday, but more like you'll know what you'll feel like on Wednesday at 2 p.m. You're going to know the conversation you'll have over coffee with X person on Thursday. If you can play out the whole of your week in your head before it happens, then this is probably a sign. Predictability used to feel like safety or comfort, but now if it feels more like a script, then that's a sign that your life might be too like contained for you. Sign 2, you've stopped having opinions about your own life. So I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you wanted something for yourself? So not like a vacation, but like a specific thing, like a desire, a specific kind of morning, how you want to wake up, a specific type of work you want to do. When was the last time you named what you desired out loud? If you've stopped letting yourself want things, then that's another sign that you've outgrown your life. Because it just means that you're now like a passive observer of your life. And it can mean that you stopped like believing or desiring things and you feel like desiring things and wanting things is no longer allowed. Sign 3, you catch yourself romanticizing the smallest changes that you see around you. So not in a, oh, I should move to Paris, but more like you see somebody online or in your neighborhood walking their dog at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you kind of like feel something. Or you see somebody like reading quietly, pleasantly alone, and again, you feel something. And it probably isn't envy. Like maybe you think it's envy at first, but it's not envy, it's recognition. Because you're seeing a version of life that you've been like unconsciously plotting and imagining in your head, but you haven't given yourself to claim. If you've been feeling that, then again, it's a sign that you're passively existing. Instead of like living your life out loud and with joy, you're just like existing. And so this is why you recognize those small changes and you want to like romanticize it. Sign 4. And this is a big one. You're tired, like in a way that like sleep doesn't fix. So let's say you sleep your 8 hours, you take long weekends, you go on vacation, and then you come back and like in 2 days, there's this huge fatigue over your life. This type of tiredness is like emotional or mental. It isn't like the physical fatigue that you're used to. I like to call it the cost of carrying a life that doesn't fit you. When you're tired like this and you have this kind of like fatigue, it doesn't get fixed by rest. It gets fixed by redesigning your life. Truly. And if that's a tired that you've been waking up with, well, that's a big sign that you might have outgrown your life. I've had it happen to me before. I'm gonna tell you like a story from my own life. If you've read my book, The Map Back to You, then you probably already know this story because I wrote about it in my book. So after I left France the first time, I ended up back in Jamaica because I was traveling around and I ended up back in Jamaica for a few years. And eventually I found like a groove. I found a good job, reconnected with friends, made new friends. And like by every metric or measurement, I was good, living the life. So the job that I had was for an international project. And it was genuinely like fulfilling work. But then here's what happened. My part of the project was like done. The project was still ongoing, but my piece was basically almost wrapped. And I started to feel the same way about like everything else in my life. Like I just kind of like finished some kind of era in my life. I had chose that job, that life with intention, but now I felt like I checked boxes on this life that I designed. And then I was like standing in the middle of it with no idea of like what comes next. I was like in my 30s at this point, and I'd built this whole thing, and then all of a sudden it just felt like finished. I went through this really rough period, convinced like I was depressed. Like there was like stretches of time where I felt like, I was stuck. I felt like sad, a bit lost. And it took me a while to realize that it was grief. I was grieving my old life, the life that I'd outgrown, the life that I had worked hard to build. I was grieving it. And once I could like name it, I don't know, once I could say to myself and actually admit, Diedre, you've outgrown this. Instead of me going through the thinking, what's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. Once I named it, like, you've actually outgrown this, then for me, it was this moment of like relief. And I could give myself grace because nothing was wrong with me. I just outgrown the life that I'd built. And the life I had built couldn't serve me anymore. And so it didn't mean that I failed or I didn't have or I had regrets. It was just that this life isn't enough anymore. Ironically, naming that moment of outgrowing life also gave me this kind of like momentum. So, like, because outgrowing means there's a next step, right? When I used to say something feels wrong with me, it felt more like this system failure. Like, okay, something's wrong with me, then shut down. And this is why I got stuck. When I was able to say that I've outgrown my life, then it signaled that it's the system wasn't like broken. It's just that I got bigger than it. And so that's what I wanted to take away from it, right? And now naming the outgrowing is scary. The moment you name it, you can't unname it. It's like the saying, you can't unring a bell, right? The moment you name the outgrowing, you have to deal with it. And dealing with it is where most women like freeze up. If you're going through that right now, you might be freezing up yourself. You might feel stuck, but feeling stuck is valid. The next question is, okay, what now? And your answer to that is probably, I don't know yet. If you're in your 30s or 40s like me, you might also feel ashamed about not knowing at your big age. How do you not know what you want to do with your life at your big age? Because not knowing when you're in your 30s, it's like romantic coming of age. But not knowing when in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it feels like you're falling behind. I felt that. You're not falling behind. You're navigating a life transition. To me, falling behind assumes there's like this race that you need to catch up on, and there isn't one. There's just you and your life. And my question for you is, are you going to spend the rest of your life looking backwards, feeling stuck? Or are you going to trust the process and trust yourself to build a new life that better fits like where you are and what your needs are right now? Because this is what I want you to take away from all of this that I've said, is that outgrowing is not some guilty verdict on your life. It's not you're ungrateful. Outgrowing is not about you're having a midlife crisis. Outgrowing is data. Your life gave you what it could, and you got bigger than it could hold. That's like a good problem. Outgrowing your life means that you've evolved. The cost of ignoring that you've outgrown your life gets louder and more expensive every year. Your job gets harder to leave. The relationships that you built, you get more like deeply entrenched in them. It gets more deeply set. It gets harder to, you know, evolve. The old version of you that like seems like you're going crazy because you've outgrown your life and you don't want to stay like this anymore. That version of you doesn't go away. She'll just get that version will just get more repressed, sadder, and it will go harder, go like internal, and it will be harder for you to access. Ignoring the fact that you've outgrown your life is usually costly because not deciding is a decision. And this is usually the more expensive one. If you feel the four signs and anything that I've said, if you feel that they're familiar, that's not a problem. It's information. And I'm not telling you to like make rash decisions immediately. Like don't quit your job, don't book a flight. Maybe book a flight, but don't book a flight. Don't even tell anyone. Just take the outgrowing seriously. Like let it be real for 1 month. And in that 1 month of admitting that you've outgrown your life, notice the things that you do want, not like the things that you should not want. Start noticing the things that you do want. How do you want your mornings to feel? How do you want your day to feel? How do you want your job to feel? How do you want to feel every day at specific moments in your life? Start noticing them because just knowing the signs of, oh, I've outgrown my life, like admitting that is good, but it's still vague. Your next step has to be specific, or you might end up rebuilding your same old life, but just like a different version, like in different font. So when you can outline what you want, then you start asking like structural questions. Where would that life actually fit? What does it cost me? What would it take me to build that life? Those questions that I just walked you through, if your answer is leading you abroad to an international life, it's leading you to maybe I want to move to France, then visa pathways, what the move actually costs, which region of France would fit your lifestyle. That's exactly what I cover in my live workshop, Move to France, the Essentials. It's 60 minutes. We go live together as a group on May 30. I go through an honest breakdown so that you can explore your options. And we close the workshop with a live Q&A. So come with all of your burning questions and bring them specific so that I can answer them directly. I'm happy to share both my professional and personal experiences navigating, outgrowing a life, and then building it abroad in France. And for the workshop, there's a replay included if you can't make it live or you have to like drop in the middle of it. There is a workshop. The link is in the description. If you've been like nodding along and saying yes this whole time through this video, then my live workshop, Move to France, the Essentials, is your next step. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're not having a phase. You've outgrown a version of your life and you're figuring out what to do with that. That's a beautiful place to be, even if it doesn't feel that way like right now. If this hit, then my next video is on specific questions to ask yourself before you decide to leave. The ones that many women skip, start there and start with my workshop. I'm Diedre and I help women to move to France to rebuild the life they desire because they deserve it, because you deserve it. See you at the next one. Ciao.